Okay, let's start. Good morning or good evening to all, and welcome to the Data-Driven Community virtual meeting. A few words about the Data-Driven Community. If you will check the community website, then you can notice on the right upper corner a new button saying Future Data-Driven Call for Speaker. If you want to speak at the Community Annual Conference, then you are more than welcome to submit your session. We are almost at the end of the call for speaker, so hurry up. Once a session will be selected, then we will present them on the website. In the meantime, the early registration is open. You cannot see the session yet, but you can start register to the event. If you scroll down the page a bit to see the upcoming event, so on the left side, you can notice the information about the Future Data-Driven Summit 2025. You have a link to open the Summit page separately. This is an annual joint conference organized by multiple user groups together. We are leading and running it with a data platform user group as partners. The second branch of activity we run are the weekly meetings of the Cloud Data-Driven User Group, like this one today. A quick reminder for the next week session. Next week, I will be stepping out of the moderator seat and into the speaker role. We are all familiar with SQL Server as a tabular database, but in fact, SQL Server has tens of embedded tools, which has nothing to do with tables. In this session next week, I will present what I called breaking the boundaries of traditional transact SQL language. We will explore the wild side of SQL Server, the less known tools, which we will all have without even knowing part of them, and only a few of us are actually using those, and they are powerful. From powerful daily users, tools, to less known and even undocumented capability that we have. We will do it next week. We will start obviously with what people are familiar, like command shell, using SQL CLR, using Python, and such option of external capability than transact SQL, and we will go over to things like COM object and more. By the way, just for general knowledge, I planned this session, the one of next week, originally for past Data Community Summit last year, but since there was no option to present it virtually, and I couldn't travel last year to present it on premise, so I decided not to present it. This gives you a hint about the value of the level of the session. It was planned for past data conference. Whether you are looking to level up your skill or just curious about SQL Server and what it can actually do, you don't want to miss that session. And with that, let's go back to our community here. You are more than welcome to contact any of the community board members. We have, of course, Jen Joseph is also here in the meeting as an audience, but Jen is actually the founder and the co-administrator of the community. We also have Anna Weekly and Defi Gori, which are moderators and event organizers. And myself, my name is Ronen Arieli. I'm from Israel, working as a senior consultant in the field of data platforms and the architecture of enterprise-level system. I'm co-administrator of the data-driven community, and today I will be hosting the session. Together, we are here to help and serve the data platform community. During the meeting today, please feel free to use the chat for questions and discussions as well. This is not a conference. We are not strict with the time. Feel free to discuss between yourself as well if you want. It's a user group meeting. It's more flexible. Moreover, you are also welcome to use reactions. Now, this is something that personally I love it a lot. It does not interfere with the course of the meeting. If you hear something that you love, like, or you just want to clap hands virtually, of course, then feel free to use it. I'm honored to introduce our guest speaker of today, Taub Ali. Taub is a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. He leads a user group and speaks in a global event a lot. In fact, he spoke at the Future Data Driven Summit last year, usually speak in the community event, and I already asked him, and he submitted a session for this year as well. I hope you will join us and see him this year as well. Taub, please share your screen. Take it from here, a few words about yourself.
Okay, thank you, Ronen. Can you see my screen good?
Yes, we can see your screen, we can see you, everything looks okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ronen, for the introduction, and Jane and Ronen, thank you for what you guys been doing for a couple of years. It's been amazing. So thanks for the opportunity, and thank you to everyone else for joining. I know this is a working day. It's not easy for you to join for an hour or hour 10 minutes in between the work, but I appreciate that. Hopefully the time become useful for you. So as Ronen said, put your questions, comments in the chat, and Ronen can stop me if there is a relevant question, or I'm also going to keep an eye. Sometimes you'll see me looking at the right because I put another screen just to see the chats as they come in. So let's go ahead. Let's get ahead. So my goal here is not to talk about my certificates, but I want you to take a note of my contact details because I do monitor all four that you're seeing on the screen. So after this session, if you download the material, if you have questions, comments that you didn't get answered, or you tried my code, you got stuck, please get in touch with me, and I can guarantee you that I'll get back to you with the answer. So just take a note of those. What are you going to talk about? So my goal is really keep the talk to minimum and get to the demos as early as I can. I'll give a brief history about generative AI evolution because some of you might be new into this field or you haven't heard about this much. So I'll spend one or two slides. And then I also very quickly go around some of the definitions of the terms because for some of you this may be a repeat, but for some of you will be new because if you do not understand these terms, you might get lost during the demo. So I'll go through those briefly, and you can put in the chat if you think you know all these. I can quickly skip through, and when you get the slide, you can review by yourself. But the core of this talk is to ask yourself, why do I need to learn about generative AI in combination with SQL Server Database or Azure SQL Database, as I'll show you, right? Because people have been doing search for decades, right, using T-SQL. We had full text search, we have like statements. So what's the big deal? Why do I need to look at what I'm showing you today, right? This is a question you want to ask yourself and try to get this idea. Because once you know why you need to learn this, why you need to look at it, I'm sure you can figure out even without attending my session. But if you do not see the need, then everything else will not make sense. So I'll try to spend some time to make you understand or make a case that why do you need to look at GenAI in combination with SQL database. And then we'll go through some demos. I'm not going to read those. As you see, the first demo, I kind of crossed out. I purposely did not take out this line from the slide because I was caught off guard a couple of weeks ago when I did not see this. So in Azure portal, if you have noticed about 3 weeks ago, if you go to the query editor, you'd see a button to launch Copilot in the query editor, and you wouldn't see that anymore. If you go today, right now, you wouldn't see that. So what happened is Microsoft decided to move this to SQL Server Management Studio 21, which is in public preview right now. But the Copilot for SSMS is in private preview. So there is a little bit of, the two things are not in the same line. So today, even if you go to SSMS 21, you don't see this, in query editor. So you have to wait a little bit till this get to public preview. And I also checked with the product team, they are not taking any new application for private preview. So this feature is kind of not available for now, but I'm pretty sure they will get to public preview. And then other demo I listed here, I'm not going to read those. You will see those when I go through the demo. And many of the slides, you will see that on the left corner, a URL I put. And that means I did not create this slide. I pretty much copy pasted, but I did check with the source, and it is okay. Especially Bob Ward and some of the folks at Microsoft encourage us to copy some of this stuff and in our presentations and use it for the community. So like this slide, you will see many slides I have link on the left. So I'm not going to repeat that again, but I wanted to make it clear that I did not create this from scratch. Sometime I modified and I clearly mentioned it in the slide. So this is the slide that shows, that we've been all, hearing this, especially post-COVID, about generative AI. ChatGPT is a common one, and there are many other ones. But the journey really didn't start in this decade, not in 2020 or 2021. The journey literally started in 1940s and 50s. So this kind of shows what happened in 1950, and then some of the largest steps in 1959 and in 2017. And if you go to this that URL, you can also read about some of the notes that what happened before, especially in 1950. Most of you, if you studied computer science in any form or shape, like in a school or in an academic setting, I'm sure you have heard of Alan Turing, right? About the Turing machine. That was one of the goals to determine if a computer could pass for a human in written linguistic fluency. Alan Turing, he created this machine, and that was kind of the beginning of this journey to see if a machine can mimic a human brain. And then in 2006, Geoffrey Hinton, he kind of came with the term, deep learning. And then in 2014, 2017, and Goodfellow, they did also a lot of work on the neural networks. And if you really want to get a breakdown, like into more granular year by year, I find this article in LinkedIn is really, really nice. If you go to the URL that you see in the slide, it's about a 10 to 12 minutes of read, really nicely summarized, starting from 1950 all the way up to 2024. I find it very fascinating to read that and see, how things progressed. So I'm not going to talk about this. It's there. If you're interested, please go ahead. And then there are some of the terms that I was talking about. So you're going to hear this all the time: prompt engineering, different kind of prompts. The better prompt you give to a model, the better answer you get. So you'll hear all this. And even if you're reading materials about generative AI, you will come to this term. So this is a formal definition. You can read it. I'm not going to read this for you, but it's pretty much asking a question like we do to each other, like what's your name, where do you work? So when you are going to ask a question to the models, that's called a prompt. And if you read more, it's really not that simple, right? So now in the next slide, I kind of listed a couple of different prompts. You see I listed only 5 here, but the list is really, really long now. And there is a whole new discipline called prompt engineering that you can build a career upon. Uh, so out of this, I just want to talk about the last one, to be honest. I mean, in the interest of time, which is called RAG, in short, Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is literally tied to why we should be looking at Gen AI in combination with Azure SQL Database. Because once someone give a prompt, using this kind of prompt with RAG, we can retrieve additional information from a database, give more context to the prompt, submit it to the model, and then model can also go to the database and get more information before it gives the answer to the prompt. And there are other ones like, like as you can see here, a zero-shot prompt can be like, give me a recipe for a chocolate chip cookie, right? Without giving any context. And I can also give it with the context. Give me a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Here is an example for oatmeal raisin cookie, and give me something for a chocolate chip cookie similar to that. You can do that. We can also have multi-turn prompts, right? You ask a question, you get answer. You can ask like, can you add this? Can you define this? Can you make it bullet listed? So you can go back and forth in your conversation with a multi-turn prompt with some of the models. If I'm going too fast, if you are, if you're not following through, please stop me and use the chat. And then Ronan can also stop me if I'm not looking at the chat.
Yeah, I will use this opportunity to say, first of all, it's good. It's not too fast, I think. And I do want to encourage everyone, please use the chat. You can also add your insight. It's not, as I said, it's not a lecture, it's more like a meeting. In addition, last point for now, I already added a few links for next week and for the community. So check the chat. And remember, the chat is not recorded. So don't count on having the information from the chat when we record the meeting. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ronan. So the next time you're going to hear a lot about token. And this is because I know the question often comes, how much all this is going to cost you once I show you the demo. And the cost, the number of tokens is tied to the cost. There are other stuff too. So sorry. So what's the token? Once I'm asking a question or the answer I'm getting back, their unit of text. So if it's a large word, it can count as multiple tokens. If it's a smaller number of letters, it's probably 1-to-1, right? So it depends. So yeah, so I'll just leave it there. You're going to be hearing this term a lot, grounding a prompt. And I will show you this during the demo, what's grounding a prompt. So it's literally giving additional context to the prompt that the user asked. And again, as I said, we can literally use database and vector to ground a prompt, and we'll see that. And for each one, I put a formal definition, like I said, and I'm going to read about this, but pretty much adding additional context to your prompt is called grounding a prompt. We just talked about this, like RAG. It's a one kind of prompt. Again, by incorporating a specific relevant information to the question. Vectors are ordered arrays of numbers, like typically float, as you see I said here. In Azure SQL Database, right now, vector is a built-in data type. So you can literally take your data, convert it to a vector, and when I say your data, It can be text, it can be image, it can be many things. And you can convert it to a vector, which you'll see in the demo, and you can save it within your database in a column because it's a built-in data type. So this is a huge, huge gain. This is speed up a lot of things. This let you do different kind of search, which we'll talk about more. Embedding. This is another term you're going to be hearing more, vector embedding. And what does that mean? I just said that transforming your data to a vector, and that process is called vector embedding. So a method of transforming discrete data, word, or images into numerical vectors. That process is called embedding, and we'll see that. And there are different kind of embeddings. You can, there are models, that do word embedding, there are sentence embedding, there are image embeddings, right? So there are different techniques you use for different kind of embedding. Okay, so I'm pretty much done with the definitions. Now I'm coming to the question that I asked before to everyone, that to understand that why do I need to understand generative AI with my database? And there are a couple of high level reasons, right? And I think one of the most compelling one to me, like precise, it was always there, right? We always want our query to give the precise result, right? Doesn't matter how do we write it, right? That's, there's no compromise on that. That was true even in the, when we just use T-SQL, C#, and like Ronan said, he's going to show us many other methods next week to, to challenge ourselves, go beyond T-SQL. So those are always there. Faster, yes, we always strive ourselves very hard to give the results at fast, right? We do indexing, we do compression, we do many other things. But the most compelling to me is interactive and intelligent, the bottom two. Because in T-SQL, I cannot get interactive, right? I cannot get my natural language to ask a question, right? I'm always bound by these rules of the T-SQL, right? I cannot just ask it in my own language. And that is what Gen AI is going to do for us, that even though our data is in a structured way, it's saved in a database, in a relational database, I can still use my natural language to get information. I talked about prompt, grounding a prompt. So what does that mean? So let's look at a little bit more in a visual way. So this is without grounding it, right? I ask a question to the model is giving me answer, right? Using the trained model. But now I put a RAG model there, or prompt. And on the right side, as you can see, even though we are talking about database today, but it is not confined to the database itself, right? It can pull info from Word doc, from, I don't know, like from Excel, from anything you train it with, right? Or anything you put it behind. So now it's going to take your prompt, it's going to go to those external data source, get more context, enrich your question, and then your prompt and whatever it gets from those sources is going to send it to the whoever asked the question. Right? So the more context you give to a trained model, the better answer it will give. Now, in the database, yes, we can do search and all that, but ultimate goal is to embed this into your applications. So how do we do that? It's at a very high level. Here you have your database and indexes, and you can create vectors, which you will do today in native T-SQL, and also using Python. Now I have this. I also have a model. So someone asked me a natural language question or a prompt. This is going to go and do a hybrid search against my vectors that's sitting in the database. And then it's going to send a result. Oh, I'm surprised that it is showing that it was not doing it when I checked this morning. So I'm sorry about that. It's probably a resolution issue. I'm not sure. Okay, let's try. Okay, sorry. So how does this vectors work? So everything, as you can see in this slide, a dog, image of a dog, puppy word, right? They all get transferred into vector. And then, your height, weight, all these are saved into all this array of float numbers. Then we go back to our high school geometry using cosine. And there are other functions that you can use, but cosine is one of the very common one to find the distance between these vectors. And distance or similarity, as you can see, like here, you can see cat and dog are very similar compared to apple and banana. And that's how it find, what is more relevant to your prompt and what is not relevant. And that's how it gives you the answer. Here's a list of different search options, right? Because I'm trying to make a point that what are the new search capabilities you're going to get with what I'm going to talk to you today. So we've been doing keyword search for a long time, right? With like a statement, with the exact match and whatnot. And then semantic search and vector search is enabled, with the language models. So now what we can do, because we can save the vectors within the database itself, we can combine all these three search together in one prompt. So we can just write a query and we can combine all these three together. I'm not going to read this. I know this is a lot of information in one slide, but when you download these slides with all the code, you can get this. I try to, give you like at a high level, if you do not want to read some, some literature, what are the differences? Why should we be looking at, at vector search and semantic search, and what are the differences and all that? Again, some of the high level points, why would you use LLM over built-in SQL Server semantic search, right? As I said many times, SQL Server had this built-in, but why do I need this, right? And again, I mean, my biggest thing is, using natural language, being interactive, being conversational with SQL Server data. That's the biggest gain. And of course, there are other ones that, that you can read more about. So I'm pretty much done with the slides. You can download all this. I haven't refreshed my GitHub repo. I'll do it by this weekend, and then I'll send email to Ronan. So, but then Ronan can let everyone know, or I can probably put a comment in the meetup page. I haven't refreshed it. So if you download today, you're going to be seeing old stuff. I have modified a lot in last few days for this talk of today. Some of the notebooks, if you download from GitHub after the weekend, you have to run those into Azure Data Studio. So if you are using both Azure Data Studio and Visual Studio Code, you probably already know that in Visual Studio Code, there is no kernel called SQL kernel, which is which I was using before. And if you haven't heard, you should know that Visual Studio, Azure Data Studio is still there, but at some point next year, they're not going to make any more change, or they're not going to do any more build on that. So I'm trying to put everything into Visual Studio Code as a Python kernel running T-SQL, which is easy, but there are some nuisances with the T-SQL syntax that I'm really not an expert. I'm not a data engineer. So I have modified it to use Visual Studio Code. I still have a couple of things not working. I mentioned those. So I made it very clear. Very soon I'll probably remove the Azure AI Studio here. We'll just use the Azure Portal and Visual Studio Code once I can convert those cells. These are some of the references. I read all of this. If you want to read more about this, what I talked about, please go to these URLs. Especially there's one called David. He has bunch of demos and stuff around this. So go ahead and do that. So I'm going to stop here for a minute, and then I will change my share screen for a minute. Got it. Okay.
After the meeting, Tao will pass me all the information. We have a new GitHub project that we opened for this exactly, and we will put all the information on GitHub, on the community GitHub, or if you prefer, on his personal GitHub. So the answer to the question is yes. We will share it after the meeting. The recording as well, I highly recommend just to follow me or Jen. We usually just inform the community on social media when something is ready.
Okay. Yeah, like Lauren said, I think Young asked a question. Yeah. Okay, so that's answered. So before all of you came here, I stage couple of things in the interest of time, right? Because you don't want to see deploying all this and setting up, because that's going to take a lot longer. So what have I done, right? Just so you know, I created a Azure SQL Server, which is a logical container. I created an Azure SQL Database. This is what we're going to use today. And then I also...
Just can you please enlarge the text?
Sure.
Just hold on.
Better?
Maybe a bit more.
Sure.
Everyone? Okay, that's good.
Okay. So I created a Azure SQL Server, which is a logical container. There is Azure SQL Database. I loaded some data, which I'll talk about. And then I have two more resources. One is a search service. Why do we need this, right? So if we go here in the search service, I have two data sources. So let's look at those. This one is really looking at the server that I just created and the database. And
every time this happens to me.
And then this is the table name, right? That we are pointing to. So once I create that data source, using this data source, I can create an index. One thing you will notice that in this index, I have 847 documents, but look at the vector. It is not using any space with the vector index. What does that mean? This means I can only use this index for keyword search, not a semantic search. And if I go to the Walmart product, here you see that I already have vectors. So from the description column in this table, I created this vector index. So we can use this for semantic search. And there's something called indexer. Indexers are the one that create your indexes. And I did not do this here, but in production, if you're doing this, you probably will have the change tracking on. And then as you are changing your data inside update delete, the indexer is going to run and keep your index up to date. Any question here? Now, if you have, just put in the chat. I want to make sure you understand, like Ronan said, this is a user group meeting. We don't need to be too formal and just me talking what I plan. I want to make sure you get the idea. And then there's something also called Azure OpenAI. And then we go to the portal. This is where you deploy your models, the models that you need. So I have two models here. One is GPT-4 and one is called Text Embedding Era 002. The second one I need for semantic search, and this one I need for both. So these are the setups that I did before all of you came online. So let's look at, and I have wrote all this. So, and you will get all this when you download my GitHub repo. Did the indexes come from the table in the Azure SQL Database? Yes, Young. These indexes came from the table in Azure SQL Database. So let me go and show you again. And the way I know that it came from there, you see the data sources. I know these are a little bit gray, but you see here, this is the server name, test database customer. Maybe if I show you in my SSMS, maybe you will get a, so this is the table that is, it is getting the data from. And the other one is the Walmart products. Hopefully I answered your question. Okay, so I'm not going to read about the prerequisite. As I said, once you download this, if you want to do what I'm doing, you need to do all this before you go further. And then if you get stuck, please let me know. This one I crossed out as I talked about. So what I was telling you before, if we go to the portal,
We have a small question in the meantime. Yon is asking if the indexes are coming from the table of the Azure Data Explorer.
yeah, I thought I just answered it. I just showed again that yes, it is coming from there with the data source. Young, you let me know if you, if I did not answer it. So the thing I was saying before, even about 3 weeks ago, if you come here, you would see a button. Okay, thank you. Young. You would see a button to have a copilot. This is not this copilot, and this feature has been moved to SQL Server Management Studio. That's why I crossed it out that I'm not going to show you. So let's start from here. Let me increase this a little bit bigger. Yeah. So in Azure portal, in general, there was a copilot for Azure SQL Database, but there's also a generic copilot which can answer question about any resource within Azure. It's not just tied to Azure SQL Database or Azure SQL Server. So to give you an example, I'm not going to run all four, but just to give you some idea that how you can use this. And for this, you do not need to set up the search and Azure OpenAI service. This is built into your portal. I'm just asking, show me which tables have consumed most space. Right? This is a common question we get as an operational DBA, right? If we are running out of space, we want to see. Maybe someone turned on an audit that they forgot to turn off, right? Maybe there's some logging that they increase the frequency for troubleshooting and they forgot to reduce it. So now it gave me a query to find us, right? So I can just copy it. I can come here And how cool is this, right? It gives me all the tables sorted by the most used space. So I'm not going to run the next two. Maybe the second one. Show me the top preemptive words for my database. And I just made up these questions, right? You can ask anything you want, but if you ask anything about specific to the data itself, it won't be able to answer because it's looking at the management plane. Right? Showing me my top 10 preemptive words. And I have a few more questions to give you ideas, but I'm not going to run all four. So let's go back to portal. Now with the OpenAI service, I showed you that I already have two models deployed. How do we use this now? We'll use this model with the indexes we created, and then we'll ask questions in natural language. And then later on, I'll show you how to do it from T-SQL and Python. Now, one thing I mentioned many times that a context is definitely help. And I want you to take a notice. First, I'm not going to give you a context. I'm not telling the model what the model is going to do, like what I want the model to do. I'm not saying anything. I'm just going to add a data source from the Azure AI Search, the index that we created. Going to use the API key, save and close. And I put some questions here. Right? See, I told you tokens, so it count my prompt as 16 tokens. And as you can see, the customer name work, it gave a name, Johnny Caprio and Johnny Caprio. Why did it say twice? Maybe there are two records. Let's ask this question, third one. I'm going to skip the second one just in the interest of time because you get the idea. So you saw the answer like this, but now notice that if I give this model some instructions, I'm saying that you are an AI assistant who is helping the company executives to gain customer insight. And I said, give the answers in a bullet point, a little bit more structured, right? So let's ask this question again and see the quality of the answer. Just the formatting, right? So it's always important to give some context to your model that what you want the model to do. And then it also gave, two references here. So why did it give us two references? If you want to double check, I put some T-SQL here. Maybe there are two records, I believe that's why. Yep. Yeah, that is why it's giving, giving the, no, this was for this one. Yeah, I mean, even if you search for this phone number, I'm sure you'll see 2 records. Oh, sorry, I actually used the wrong one. I had it here. I knew I wrote all the key sequels for the questions just so you verify. Yep, so Todd Logan, it has 2 records. That's what it shows. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to use the other index, right? We have a vector index and how to use it. So before I use the models, I want to show you that I can also do the search here if I want to, right? So I wrote some, curtain and furniture. So now you can see it gave me the records that talk about curtain, but we talked about a lot about the vector, right? As you can see, this is what the vector index look like, all these numbers that is using to answer my question. And if you view this, it actually take my word and turn it into in JSON format. That's how we submit this. So we can also do this if we want to. And ask this directly here. So now I'm saying, give me, some products with upscale sandals. And it gives you info about flip-flop with cotton thong, few others. So you can do this here, but let's try it from here. So let's remove the data source. Let's clear this up. Now we're going to use the other one. And this time we're going to choose that we're going to do a vector search. Now I need the other model. Okay. So let's ask some questions. And again, I'll show you the difference it makes with the prompt, giving some context and without giving it. So look at this, what I'm saying. I'm on a tight budget, but I need expensive furniture options that are easy to install and make my living room more appealing. How difficult or will it be possible to write this in a T-SQL? Right? Probably no. I mean, I do not know how to write this, but I can just ask it like this, and it is going to go into the vector index and give us some answer. Right? Now, let's give it some context and show you that, how you can get better results set. Similar to what we saw before. Okay, so you see the, see the quality of the answer just by giving it a instructions. So keep that in mind. I know I'm repeating this but this is very important. How did you create those indexers, indexed use? So maybe you should just create one. So Young asked in the chat, how did I create the indexes, right? So let's go to the data source. Let's create a new data source just for a demo for Young. And you can see you can get it from many places, including Fabric and other places. So I just have Azure SQL Database. This is my server. This is my database. I want a table. I have an option. I can also use view, schemas, and then I create a table. So I don't know, select Amazon product. And then I can do, track changes and all that. Create. And so now I have a data source here. I can go to indexes, add index. No, I shouldn't be doing this. Sorry, let me go back. Import data. I'm going to use this data source, right? And I can give it a name, live demo. These are all the fields in the table, right? Product ID. And then, whatever you need should be searchable, sortable, filterable. And now you create indexer. Submit. So now this indexer is working on. It has found 1465. And if we go to the indexes, it didn't show up yet here. It takes some time. Hopefully that answers your question, how to create index and indexer. Okay. So now how do I, okay, you're welcome. How do I do this programmatically? This notebook you will also get as a SQL notebook where you do not have to use all this. Maybe I can just show you. But I'm trying to move away. So this is the SQL notebook. Unfortunately, in Visual Studio Code, there's not a kernel. So I had to use some mixed Python. If you use this, you do not have to do a lot of stuff that I'm doing there. So I'm just going to close this. This is to establish a connection with my Azure SQL Database. I'm doing all this. And if you want to use in a Python cell T-SQL, you need this. And then I kind of, from here, pretty much all cells has a description. So you should read that. And then if you're still not sure, then let me know. So what am I doing here? I'm creating a function in my Azure SQL Database using the OpenAI service with the API key, right? Pointing to there. And I'm going to use this function to convert the description column of a table into vector. And so let's look at our I don't know if I can make it any bigger. As you can see, this function is right here. This is the one we created. It's the exact same function. When I downloaded the data, there were some cleanup I had to do. Otherwise, I could not, there were some characters that it could not convert to vector. So this is a cleanup, and I'm not going to run this. You can take this function, use it if you get like public data. Now I'm creating a table called vector table, and I'm going to load the top 250 rows from Walmart product. This is a standard T-SQL that I'm sure you know. And now I'm adding a column called description vector. And I want to show you this. As you can see, this is empty right now. Next, we're going to use that function to convert these descriptions to vector. This is the one I could not get working in this cell. So I probably need to spend a little bit more time. I don't know why at this time, but this works in Management Studio, but that's why I wrote a note there. So as you can see here, we are using the function that we wrote and passing this. And this is going to create, there are a few, I still get error. I probably have to look at my cleanup function. So now you can see here. So now it's advantage for you to have all the other data in the product table with the vector in the same place, because now you can do natural language, but you can also add more filters, right? Only give me the one with the review count this, only give me this one with that. You can do all those things right now with this. So if some it could not convert, I'm just going to delete those. So now you see what I'm doing. I'm using the database. From that, I'm asking a question, help me plan a high school graduation party, right? And it is going to use the cosine of those vectors, and it is going to give the closest distances. And I'm just looking at the top 10 products. And here you can see, using the vectors, it calculated the distance. But the advantage of having this together in my database, now I can add more predicates, right? I want free 30-day returns. So give me only the one that has 30-day returns. And it will give you a different list from the one that we saw. Any question or comment so far? Okay. Let me clear outputs. This is the code that I copied and edited from here. I gave you a link, so just so you know that I haven't, wrote this all by myself. This one, you can literally give the context to the model and do pretty much a lot of the stuff that we did in the portal. You can do through T-SQL. You can set up max token, temperature, frequency, and all those things from here. So if you're interested, copy this code and take a look. The other thing I wrote here is, how can I do all this from Python, right? You will still need an OpenAI service, and I'm still going to use the OpenAI API key. So because some of the questions that that I put here, you will find it hard if you ask the language model from the portal yet. They are still not very good with the numbers. They're good with descriptions and stuff. So you can do some of this stuff with Python that you will not get answer in the portal using the language model. So I wrote some of the post here. One of my colleagues helped me to write some of this. He's more expert in Python than me. So, and like I have enough comments in between, so I'm not going to, definitely you have to change your database name, your API key, your credentials and all that, right? Otherwise it's not going to work. So we're creating two functions. One is called Ask SQL and one is Ask SQL verbose. The difference is the first one is going to just give you the answer. The second one is going to give you some more details how it got the answer. Okay, so now I can ask how many rows are there in my Walmart product table. And I'm running this in the interactive window purposes just so you can see. And I do have 1,000 records for sure. What's the average review count? $465. Now, if you ask this question in a verbose mode, it actually gives you a lot more details that how does these models get to the answer for you. You can see a little bit more details. So let me go back to the slides. I'm just going to show you my contact again. That's all info I had. So watch for an email or a message from Ronan over the weekend. I'll upload all this into my GitHub repo so you can download, play by yourself. And if you have questions, comments, like I said, use any of this. I'll be more than happy to answer questions because some of this I might not know, and that'll probably give me an opportunity to challenge myself a little bit more. So thank you for spending about an hour, 5 minutes with me. And thank you, Ronan and Jane, for the opportunity. So I can hang out for another 10 minutes. Please, any questions, comments, anything you want me to go over, show you more, I'll be more than happy. Ronan, back to you.
You are more than welcome to use the chat if you have more questions. We are still here. And in the meantime, I would like to thank our speaker for today. It's a great session. I highly recommend to go over it again afterward and to do it while you are actually training. I did mention in the chat that you will need a license. Maybe it was not clear in order to use the GTP4. When you will start to use it for the first time, in your subscription, it's a license per subscription, then you will get more instruction how to get it if you haven't done it already. If you know someone at Microsoft, it can help because it's not automatically that everyone gets the license. I'm talking about the developer license, the free license. If you know someone at Microsoft, they can recommend you, and it makes it more a chance that you will get a free license. So thanks a lot, everyone that joined us. I remind you all to register for next week's meeting. You have the information in the chat. I put a link. It's actually let's call it a 1+2 invitation. Bring 2 more members with you next week. You can follow me on social media or Jean Joseph to get the update information regarding this recording of the meeting and in general our upcoming activity. Looking forward to see you all next week. Let's see if we have more questions. That's great. So we'll meet next week. Thanks again, Taub.
Thank you, Ronen.
I'm closing the meeting unless someone has the last minute question. So counting time down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.